Hey, Jason, this is Victor Griffin.
Hey Victor, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Very good, very good. The wonderful world of Pentagram, I'm sure, is good. You guys on tour right now, from what I see?
Yeah, well, there's a little bit of a twist to that. I'm not actually doing these West Coast shows right now.
Oh no, okay.
Yeah, Matt Goldsboro is kind of filling in for me right now, just on this little run that they're doing out there. He was uh he was in the band in 2012 when I left and I did the Engraved album, and he kind of came in and did 2012, and then I came back. But I just had some unexpected uh, some pretty big personal issues I had to deal with recently, and so he was kind enough to kind of come back and step in for these shows. But should everything should be wrapped up and back to normal by the end of September, in time for the October and November tours.
Good, let's hope so. That'd be
Oh yeah, man.
excellent. When you're looking on this album, Curious Volume, I think there's some good stuff going on this. Certainly guitar-wise as well. Your tone is interesting on this album. What type of amps would I say you used?
I use Laney GH100 heads. I have a kind of a combination of the TIs and the 100L models,
Hmm.
and then modded by Voodoo amps. So I've been using those for a number of years now, and then I generally go through these Fender Showman 412 cabs. And sometimes the cabinets can vary. It depends on the room and just what type of tone we're getting in different rooms and setups and stuff like that. So sometimes I might play around in the studio a little bit with different cabinet configurations. But generally, I stick with the Laneys, man. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I use a lot as well, and seems to work really well to kind of get my tone. So.
So you're not always close miking, you're miking like somewhat farther in the room sometimes for this album?
Yeah, generally, well, usually we might, run like three mics. There might be a room mic. It might be a little further away, and then a couple different mics, right on the cabinet, and different types of mics. Use like a ribbon mic, and then a couple different others, roars and so forth. So yeah, so that gives you quite a bit to play around with. And then, so in doing that, as you record like basically one track, you're getting picked up by three different microphones.
Hmm.
So, you double track the guitar usually for the rhythm tracks. And then by the time you do that, you end up with a pretty thick guitar tone.
A lot of people today that don't even go through that process. It's a good the tradition is it just keeps on going. With you guys, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's really nothing unusual, man. I mean, as far as recording that way, I mean, it's been done for years. I know there's a lot of bands these days just sort of get in there and you know throw a mic on a cabinet or whatever. I think there is a negative aspect to like all the home recording, and and it's so easy for people to record these days that I think the sometimes the art of recording gets lost in in all that sometimes,
Hmm.
because you end up with a lot of people here and there who aren't very experienced, and but luckily I have a good relationship with Travis Wyrick from Lakeside Studios, where I recorded all the guitar tracks, and I've worked with him on a lot of the well, we recorded the whole Last Rites album at that studio, as a matter of fact, and then I've recorded all the Place of Skull stuff I've done there. So and he's just a fantastic engineer and producer, and works on a lot of higher profile stuff too. But
Hmm.
the thing is, he knows all those old tricks of the trade, that's been kind of passed down, for decades, and they all still work, So um, obviously, there's been upgrades in gear and stuff like that, but I've always gotten a really good guitar tone working with him.
Victor, let's say simulated amps and stuff. What's your opinion on that? With the effects that create these Marshall tones and Laney or anything like that. In your opinion, what do you think of this? Is it good stuff?
You mean guitar effects? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, guitar effects that give you that simulation tone of a
Oh
Marshall
yeah.
JCM 800.
Oh yeah. You mean like overdrive effects or distortion devices and stuff like that?
Yeah, that
Uh,
tweak your tones.
yeah. I personally, man, I don't use any distortion pedals at all. I use I mean, the amps I use are high gain amps, and with they have four preamp tubes, and then they five stages of gain. And so I just use that, man. I've never been very big on using distortion pedals or overdrive pedals or whatever, other than using for a boost for lead solos and stuff like that maybe, which I use clean boost pedals for that. I don't really use a distortion, any type of extra distortion device. I just use the amp being cranked up with and most modern amps have like a gain control on the head. So I do run into guitar players, who ask that question, who are using a distortion pedal, with an amp that has its own gain. And I don't really get that. To me, you lose a lot of control as far as, rolling the volume knob off and getting a cleaner tone when you need it and stuff like that. But I guess to each his own. I just found that the signal is a lot stronger and powerful and thicker when I don't use a distortion device and just use the amp. And also for rolling off the volume and getting cleaner tones for like a song that might have clean dynamics in it, so you can roll back the volume. Or I use a volume pedal too. You can roll back the volume pedal and it cleans up really nicely, and you don't have the line noise or the squeal of an overdrive pedal trying to interfere with that.
And for the world of Pentagram, you guys making a music video for the new album?
I mean, we haven't, as far as I know, I haven't heard of any plans for that right now. But the album just got released, so we have tour dates coming up in October, November, and then we're going to be probably covered up, for next year in support of this album.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised though if that opportunity comes around with this album, especially it's getting great reviews, and it's really we've been able to kind of keep the momentum going with the band since we did Last Rites, and obviously with the movie and the documentary, it's Last Days Here and stuff. So it would be kind of cool to do an official video as well for the album.
And Last Days Here, I'm sure it accumulated a lot more fans that never even knew about the band. Would you say that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were chugging along pretty good, and then once that movie got out and it was well promoted, and especially when it hit Netflix and all that, and it hit a lot of film festivals where it won awards and everything, there was a noticeable difference, as we continued to tour after the movie. And then we got, started getting offers to play bigger festivals and all that stuff. So, and it's still going strong now. I think that's in direct relation to how well, Curious Volume is doing, this early in its release with the reviews and as far as how it's already selling really well. So we're excited about it.
And how's Bobby doing these days?
He's doing pretty good. He's hanging in there. He, obviously, with that type of abuse for such a long period of time, there's going to be physical consequences to that. So he has to be really careful, take good care of himself. The simplest thing like catching a cold for him, can be devastating sometimes as far as, the length of time it takes him to get over it. Be careful and do his best to take care of himself and try to get lots of rest, especially out on the road. Well, tend to rest and that kind of thing. So, but he's doing really considerable. He's hanging in there, and I think it helps. When we have more tours coming out, I think that helps him to be encouraged because he gets to sort of mingle with the fans a little bit, and I think that helps keeps him going too. So hopefully he's going to be around for a long time.
Absolutely. And your artwork concept on this album, where's the whole vision come from to make this artwork?
Well, we had the Curious Volume title is sort of a derivative of the Poe thing, the Raven, and so we had the idea. I don't know if you recall, but like last year we had a couple of tour posters, where we used the Raven, and we decided we would like to carry that over into for the new artwork. And I think it's cool for us too because we've sort of distanced ourselves and the band for the past 5 years, from the typical Baphomets and Pentagrams and all the run-of-the-mill stuff that to me is completely worn out ages ago. And so we were able to distance ourselves from that, not only for just because of it being used so often and so much by other bands, but also we just don't really relate to that stuff anymore. So we wanted to use the Raven because it's still a dark, kind of a mysterious image, but we didn't want to use it just in a typical way. So we ended up kicking around some ideas, and I actually came across another piece of art where a guy had used a bird, and it was sort of a cyborg bird, half machine, half bird, which was really cool. And so we kind of borrowed from that idea and applied it to the Raven. And Richard Shelton, who did the artwork, we kind of passed along the ideas and the concept to him. And and he started doing some different sketches, and we kind of went back and forth for a little bit, to where he kind of dialed it in to where we all agreed, whatever. And I can't really say there's any really deep meaning behind it, other than it's sort of basically what it is. The electronics in the bird and the Raven on the cover are amplifier schematics.
Okay.
So it all just kind of relates to the volume. It's Curious Volume, and then so we kind of took the dark, mysterious bird Raven, and then added in the schematics from a guitar amp, and just kind of combined the whole thing. So it's probably a little bit more of a modern take on something like that, but I think it works. I think it's cool, and kind of adds to the title of the album.
Certainly different, and napped in with the Pentagram logo makes for good artwork.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing, I think we just get tired of because the band is named Pentagram, that it always has to be associated with the imagery of the symbolism of a pentagram or a Baphomet or any of that stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to that. It's more or less just a word. But everybody can kind of take it how they want. So.
And a lot of people can't pronounce the word, to make the band name, so that's good too.
Right. Yeah.
Because it is a common name.
Yeah.
Well, Victor, I hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for taking the time in this interview, talk about Curious Volume, and hope you get on tour soon.
Yeah, man. We'll be out in October and November, so hopefully. Where are you?
I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada, so you guys aren't coming to Canada from what I've seen in the agenda.
Oh, right. Yeah, we had some issues with the border and customs thing, so hopefully we can get up there eventually, though, man.
Yeah, it would be a good thing, I think.
Yeah. All right, Jason. Well, it's good to meet you, and hope to see you on the road someday, man.
Well, hopefully someday, Victor. You have a good one, and talk to you soon.
Okay, you too, man.
Yeah.
Take care.